Hi, I'm Wendy Yi, and welcome to the Dice Tower. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite 10 worker placement games. And I will tell you what, this was a really hard list to make. I just love worker placement, and I remember that being the very first type of mechanism that I gravitated towards when I started into really learning that there's a lot of different things that modern gaming could do. I remember playing Lords of Waterdeep and just being like, wow, this game is amazing. And then I think I played Caverna and I was like, this is amazing. And so I was like, worker placement, worker placement. All right, so these are my current-ish top 10 list, but you know, it could change any day. There's so many good ones. All right, let's go ahead and begin. Number 10 on my list is Galactic Cruise, and honestly, this one is gonna be higher. It's just here right now because it's brand spanking new and I've only played it like 3 times. But it's going to move up on the list so fast. In Galactic Cruise, you are trying to basically build up this really cruise industry, and you're trying to become like the heir to the company. And so you need to plan cruises. You need to make sure you have all the resources and supplies you need. These are space cruises, by the way. That's why it says Galactic. So you're planning these cruises into space, but then you also need to market to the right people, have them on your ship, and you get points and you get benefits and bonuses and stuff depending on what type of people you have, what ports you go to. It's just really cool how it ties in the cruise industry, but also this is a crunchy game. This is like a Lacerda level game it's so good. Anyway, so there's a worker placement element to it where you place a worker, and if you happen to have gears that are connected to other spaces, you can choose to take either the spaces you're on or any spaces connected by gears. If they're connected by other people's gears, you have to pay those other people. And the more gears that are there, the more expensive it gets because you're paying each person more money. So it can get really expensive. But also there's ways to discount that and all that jazz. So yeah, this is so good. I enjoy Galactic Cruise so much and I could gush about it a ton. But there's other worker placement games I need to talk about. Number 9 on my list is the first time that I saw worker placement do something different, and this is Raiders of the North Sea. I haven't played this in a minute, and honestly, I want to pull it out again because I really enjoy what Chem Phillips was doing with this. And so in this game, you are raiders and you're trying to raid, and you know what I mean, you're Vikings, doing Viking raiding stuff. But the worker placement element behind it is that you are placing a worker, taking that action spot, and then you're picking up another worker and taking that action spot. So you get 2 actions in a turn, and there's different worker colors. So depending on the color of the worker depends on which spaces you can go, and then also what level of action you can do in those spaces. And so as you are placing workers and picking up workers, you're essentially upgrading them or changing them for future turns. And so there's this element of planning ahead. It's just so good. Like when I think about it, I think, I really want to play this again. It's awesome. Especially as you start like filling up your boat with people with special abilities, and you go out and you raid and you get, points, and you get new workers, and you get, the higher level kind of like white workers and stuff. Oh, there's so many good things. So anyways, Raiders in the North Sea, fabulous game. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it because it does do something different. All right, number 8 on my list is Panam, and this is a game where you are trying to build up your personal airline and make it strong and have all these cool routes so that they are tasty and juicy enough that Panam wants to come in and swipe up those routes, because ultimately you want to have the most stocks and the most money in Panam. So the way that the worker placement works in this is it has like a priority system. So there's a bunch of different actions on the board, and you have your little engineer guys that you can place out on those actions, but they all have costs on them. And so basically whoever's willing to pay the highest cost is the person who's going to get first priority at picking what those actions do. And so, you could be like, okay, I'm going to place kind of in the middle. I'm going to pay, $8 in the middle. And then someone else is like, well, I really want to do this action first, so I'm going to pay the $10 spot, and I'm going to put my spot there. And someone else is like, I don't care. I'm going to pay $2 because I don't need to do it in order. And so it's one of those, it has a really cool priority system. And then basically you place all your workers and then you fire them all off. And I just really enjoy that. And I enjoy the theme behind the game and the stocks and all that stuff as well. So it's a great worker placement game, Panam. Number 7 on my list is Conbon, and this is my favorite Lacerda game. And he does a lot of worker placement, so this is the one that I just decided this is going to be it. So in Conbon, you have workers that you're placing out. And you're trying to go to basically different parts of this car factory so that you can get the parts that you need, the designs that you need, so that you can test drive the cars, so that you can get them out, so that you can eventually get points. But your boss is moving around all the different worker placement spots, and she is basically resetting the different parts of the factories. And so she gets in the way, and you're scared of her because she's scary. So you can't ever go to the same factory as her, even though there's really 2 worker placement spots per area. And so in this game, the worker placement is all about timing. It is all about getting the right actions when you need them so that you can get all the parts that you need done so that you can score the points in the proper order, while also dealing with other players and priority of being, the farthest left space in a spot. And then you have your boss, Sandra, moving around, getting in the way, causing problems, and being obnoxious. So I really enjoy Conbon. It's good, and I like that worker placement element of timing. All right, number 6 on my list is Sky Mine / Mumbasa. I just happen to own Mumbasa. And in this game, I guess worker placement is kind of like smaller in this than many of my other games. And if I had thought about that, maybe I would have made it lower on my list. But I just really enjoy this game, so that's why it's where it's at. So in Mumbasa, you are playing out cards and you're kind of planning your cards out in different piles. And then you're always going to get one of those piles back at the end of the round. And so you're trying to plan it so that you can play all the cards you want in different piles so you can get the actions that you want, but also trying to get those piles back so that you can have future actions that are really great. Now, the worker placement side of this is as you play those little action cards out and stuff, there's worker placement stuff on the board. And that can be so important because you're trying to fill in those spots and get bonuses and awesome stuff so that you can do all the other things you want to do in Mumbasa. And so, yeah, this game is kind of worker placement light the more I think about it. But it's still really good, so don't hate me for it. I love it. All right, so here you go. Sky Mine / Mumbasa, number 6. Number 5 on my list is Architects of the West Kingdom, and this is another Shem Phillips game. And in this one, you are placing out workers, but every time you place an additional worker on a spot, that spot becomes juicier and you get more stuff from it. And eventually, you're going to try to send other people's workers to jail because you don't want them to have 6, 7 workers on a spot and be getting crazy amounts of benefits. So, for example, if you place out a worker on a wood collecting spot, you get like 1 wood. If the next turn comes around, you place a worker out on the wood collecting spot, you would get 2 wood. And then the next time would be 3 wood. So you're like, it just gets stronger and stronger. And eventually someone's like, no, go to jail. I'm sending all your people. You have to go get them out of prison later. But I like this one a lot. It sadly doesn't work super well at 2 players. There's like an additional bot that you can have, but it's a little fiddly. But if you can get this at 3 players, it's a fabulous game. Architects of the West Kingdom. Number 4 on my list is Viticulture, and it's so hard because I think I like Tuscany better, but I've played more Essential Edition, and so I can't decide which one I like, but they both worker placement kind of the same. So in Viticulture, you have a winery, and you are planting grapes, and you are aging wine, and you're doing all this cool stuff that's very wine related. But what I like about the worker placement is that you have a grande worker, a big boy worker, and then you have little workers. And so when you go do spots, you can place out your little workers. And then if someone else is already in a spot, you can't place another little worker. But you can place a grande worker anywhere. And so you can place them out. And so you're kind of like holding on to that trump card where you're like, okay, I'm going to go to all the spots I can possibly go to. And then I'm going to slam it down. I'm going to be like, ha ha ha, I can sell wine too today. I just really think that it's cool that you have that strong worker that really allows you the flexibility that you need, but it still is very tight worker placement wise. So that's Viticulture. Pick a version. It's probably wonderful. Just play it. Number 3 on my list is Zulken the Mayan calendar, and this is worker placement on gears. So as you, basically you're taking turns and you are playing out workers, or you are picking up workers and activating the spaces that they're on. So when you place them out at the end of the round, the gear's going to turn 1 little tick, and then all the workers are going to basically level up to the next action. And so you can just leave them out there and you can be like, cool, just stay on that gear until you eventually fall off and get crushed and die. Or you could take the actions, which is like the correct choice, beforehand. But it is a game that is all about timing. So you are trying to make sure, one, that you can feed your workers because every old style worker placement game, that was a necessity. So you have to feed your workers, but also you're trying to earn points and you're trying to build buildings. You're trying to do all these cool upgrade things. And so you're like, okay, I need to go to the corn track because I need food, because you have to have food to place out more workers. You have to have food to be able to go to higher actions. You have to have food to do everything in this game. So you're like, okay, well, I have to put someone on the food track. But then also I need resources to be able to build buildings, to be able to upgrade, to get new powers. So I'll put someone on that, the resource track. Well, I only have one other worker that I start with. So do I have them start working up to get another worker? That's more mouths to feed. Do I have them start moving up? I'm getting resources soon. So do I want them to get buildings? Do I want them to bump on upgrades tracks? Do I want to be able to start working on the giant gear that takes an eternity to get to the end of? So that I can get big points from that. Like, there's so many choices. Anyways, Zulken, I love this game. In fact, I just recently played it and I still love it. Oh, it's so good. It's all about timing, baby. All about timing. Timing and Zulken. Number 2 on my list is once again another Shem Phillips game. And I know that I feel like I'm just gushing about him, but I just really love, especially his older work. When he really worked with worker placement games and he created so many unique and new ideas for them. So in Paladins of the West Kingdom, you get a slew of different color workers. And in fact, every round you're playing a card that says like, you get these workers. And then you play out those workers into different worker placement spots on your board in front of you. And you're not really fighting for a lot of spaces. There's a couple spaces you can fight for, but you kind of have this worker placement board in front of you. And as you place it out, you get different colored workers, you get different bonuses. And so this game starts with like, I have 3 or 4 workers, but you get to take so many actions and you get so many bonuses that those workers keep coming. And so the rounds feel so good as you're unlocking and you're actually making some of the big actions cheaper. And so you like, okay, well, initially I needed 3 workers for this action. Now I only need 2, and I just love it so much. This is my favorite out of all of his games that he has designed by far. And I really enjoy that element of worker placement stuff on your board. So you're competing with yourself in the regards of like, you need to make sure that you're timing it all correctly and making the discounts correctly. But also there's a lot of shared space that you are competing over as well for cards and other bonuses and those kind of things. So it's not like just a solo game. There is that interaction and that element of getting in each other's way. But I love it so much. This one is fabulous. If you haven't played it, this one I definitely recommend. All right, last on my list, my number 1 worker placement game is my number 2 game of all time, and that is Feast for Odin. So in a Feast for Odin, you have this just smorgasbord of actions that you can take. And in a lot of worker placement games, especially the ones by Uwe Rosenberg, there's usually like only a handful of spots and those spots get filled up. And, I feel like the games kind of end up getting written in specific directions. And you're like, okay, I do this strategy or I do this strategy or I do this strategy. It's kind of my choices. Whereas in Feast for Odin, the world is your oyster. It is your feast. And there's literally a feast of worker placement spots. And the way that it's set up is it's set up in columns and rows so that all the rows kind of have to do with each other so that it's well organized. And then the columns are basically the strength of the action that you get. So if you want to do crafting, you could do crafting at level 1 and just maybe change one thing. Or you do crafting at level 4 and be able to do all this cool stuff, but it takes a lot of workers. In fact, it takes 4 workers to the level 4 spot. Oh, wow. Feast for Odin is amazing. You are playing polyominoes, you're playing worker placement, you are expanding out to new islands, you're getting all these end of round bonuses, you're trying to meet, these objectives on cards and get all these extra points. And there's just so much to it. And you can't do everything and you shouldn't do everything because that's the point of the game, is that it's just open and you can keep trying different strategies and do different things. And you know what? Sometimes I play and I'm like, I'm going to try this thing that I've never tried before. And I just want to see if I can get any sort of points from it. And it's so fabulous. So anyways, Feast for Odin, I highly recommend it with the expansion. It's not necessary, but it is a very good expansion. And it tightens up for player count specifically. So there you go. Feast for Odin. That is my favorite worker placement game. And worker placement games are awesome, aren't they? I really want to know, what are your favorites? Because there are so many out there. This list could have been 50 games long, I feel like. It was so hard to decide. which ones were my absolute favorite. So there you go. That's my top 10. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Wendy Yi, and keep placing them workers.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.